Hi, everyone. I'm Coraly. I'm a lead UX designer, senior lead. I lead now a lot too. Been in the industry for about 10 years now, and I do a lot of talks and a lot of DEI work as well. But I'm so glad that Celia extended this invite to us. And today we're going to be really covering, I guess, the elephant in the room when we're looking at what 2023 has been like for us. And it's, what do I do now that there's so many layoffs going on? There is, the job market is so all over the place for me as a UX designer that's trying to get in here. What do I do? And with us today, we have Neil, Sonia, and Aline. And I'm just going to let Neil introduce himself first, and then I'll go the next ones after that.
Like Coraly said, I feel super blessed and thankful to be here. And thanks for everyone attending and for Celia and all the great work she does in the community and putting things like this together. Like Coraly, I've been in games for about 10 years, started as a game designer, turned UXer along the way, and kind of always approached UX more from a systemic kind of game design, holistic perspective. I was a co-founder and head of UX at UX is Fine for like the last 5.5 years. We were a design outsourcing UX and UI studio in the video game space, working with a bunch of great studios and teams. Recently, I moved on from that and doing my own independent game development, but still do a lot of UX stuff, UX mentorship, UX career development in the community and things like that. So that's me.
Let's do Aline.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me as well, folks. So I also have been in the industry for about 10 years or more, like 12-ish, and 7 of those were working with video games. So I did a bunch of everything. Games like big games for big companies like EA, small games for small companies, and also games that will never see the light in the end of the tunnel, probably. So that's me.
And then Sonia.
That leaves me. Hey everyone, I'm Sonia. Super filled with gratitude for this event and for being here. Thank you. I am on the other side of the spectrum of experience with these folks. They're all veterans. I have about 3 years of experience as a designer, so I'm a bit on the earlier side of my career. I am currently a UI UX designer at Activision. I work in our player support department. So I'm helping with a lot of our internal tooling for like our agents and like some other things that we do at player support. And then also some of my time goes towards our web experience. So I work more in like the traditional sense of design, more like the tech side, product design. But I am in the games industry as well. Super grateful for being here. And yeah, hopefully I can help today.
Yeah, what I love about this panel is, just like Sonia was saying, it's a broad spectrum. We have Sonia on one side, who's pretty much just getting started, and she's full-time at a company, seeing these changes in real time, starting earlier in her career, all the way down to Aline and Neil, who have been in the industry much longer. They run their own consultancies, their own businesses. They've managed other people as well, and then me in the middle. But but yeah, like all of you are going to get like a really great perspective, wide range perspective on what's going on right now. So the first topic we really want to cover is what is going on right now. What is the current, like, how has the current market changed? And I just very quickly want to discuss, the layoffs. Amir posted last night, and thank you, Amir, for posting that, or Amit, that they're estimating about 10,000 people have been laid off this year alone, compared to last year, which I believe was like around 1,000. So it's been a huge jump. And as UX designers, at least in my experience, I don't know about you all, I never, apart from events like this, I rarely ever meet other UX designers or work with other UX designers. It's been very rare in my own job experience. But taking into account that it's very likely, you have all of those 10,000 people, a good percentage of them, amazing UX designers that have been in this field for as long as we have, are suddenly without jobs. So what do? Like, some of them may have been contracting and maybe they can go back to that. Others, this is probably been their only experience full time. They don't know what to do next. And there aren't as many jobs out there for us. Like it's not, at least as I've been looking, it's been tough finding teams. And then Aline and Neil, I want you to kind of like talk about the opportunities that you're seeing, even though like we're not seeing as many full-time gigs.
For sure. Go for it, Aline.
No, I was just gonna start saying, like, it's funny because I think that's exactly why the market is bad for big companies have big teams, so has way more opportunities for consultants and small teams. And because of the layoffs, I have seen many veterans from the industry create their own companies as well, which also creates opportunities for consultants and the other folks to join. So I think that's actually like, from one side, we have this downside of like stability and kind of full-time jobs. We have many other opportunities coming in the market that were not there before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Go for it,
go
Coraly.
ahead. No, I've been seeing a lot more contracting roles coming up now compared to full-time, way more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to double down a little bit on that, like, not to paint it with an overly rosy lens, right? Obviously, it's a hard time right now, but when things get really tough, people tend to look to consultants, right, and contractors, because it's a spin up, spin down model. It's not healthcare, it's not benefits, it's not the cost of hiring and cutting someone loose and things like that. So it's not to say that it's great, but there are definitely opportunities out there because of it on a more flexible model, for sure. Right. And then kind of like Aline mentioned, right, being a lone wolf versus like, can you gather up with a few people and start something? And I think sometimes there's an idea of like starting a company is this big thing. Like when we started UX is Fine, we grew it into something pretty large and successful, but it was literally like me, Jason, and Dave at the beginning of like, let's do some contracting work together. And a company sometimes can just be a couple people that that are talented, that can balance projects together. And you can find a way to kind of make it work in a scrappy way, for sure.
And then another thing I'm noticing as well, and when I started 15 years ago, I already noticed this, like as UI UX, we've always been kind of asked to do a bit of everything. But now I'm being asked more than usual. and it's like, oh my God, that there's only so much of me that I can like spare. But what are you three seeing that's being asked of you? And Sonia, I'm actually interested in you specifically because you are with a team full time, and I would imagine maybe there has been some folks that have been laid off. Like, what responsibilities are being put on you that typically you don't see?
Well, I will say we've been very fortunate that my team hasn't been impacted in that way at all. I've also only been with them for like a year and 4 months now. Before that, I was working for startups before I transitioned to Activision. But it is kind of also, I am the only designer on our team also. So you do also get random requests. It's like, hey, like we're making a dashboard for this random analytics thing. Can you give us some iconography? Or hey, can you make this banner? Hey, like, these kind of like graphic design tasks that, maybe usually fall to like someone who's solely dedicated to a graphic designer role is like, oh, you have design or artist in your name, so you can do anything under that umbrella, right? So you kind of do get pulled. And then sometimes it's hard because you do have to, you have your project. You might have to have conversations about like, hey, how am I supposed to prioritize my work if I have all these asks from people? But yeah, I experienced that myself. And that's even without having that layoff squeeze.
Yeah. I love the comment that's coming in: UI UX, visual, cooker, and cleaning.
It's so true.
Like I've had to be a producer many times myself, both for like our UI UX team that I was leading, or now with the consulting gig that I'm doing as a whole, like for the entire team on the design side. Neil or Aline, do you have any other thoughts you want to share?
We were even joking that the slash is back, right? So our roles become like something slash something slash something, and that's kind of funny in a way, but also an opportunity to learn and be different. I don't know, like it has up, like again has ups and downs of everything, but like coding is really a UX thing, you know? Like, should we be doing that? Not sure, you know, probably not.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what everyone else is saying. It's just like, it's just this growing umbrella to the technical stuff, especially. I think Aline mentioned this, like a lot of us are seeing the Unreal, UMG type of stuff being thrown in there a lot. And it's kind of, it's almost a misnomer to even talk about what UXers are being asked, right? Because it moves so much company to company, right? There's the companies that have more maturity, right? And we're UX designers and we're UI designers. Some companies were the slash. Some companies were visual designers in UX. Sometimes it's tech implementation. So
a prototyper.
Yeah,
versus,
prototype, right? So it's so different, and it's tough to even be prepared. What I tell people too is, but I also think there's a kind of a cutting edge to the other side of this, where if you try to be everything and you present yourself that way, you actually can kind of worsen your odds of getting a job. So it's this weird catch-22. Like if you present yourself, especially as a young person, as too much of a generalist, like I implement and I do this and I do this. Like if you've been doing UX for 2 years and you show me all these things in your portfolio, I assume, well, you haven't had time to focus on one of them very much. So your skills are probably lower across the board, but then people are being asked for that, right? So it can be tough as a person trying to get in the industry. Like, how do you, so I usually tell people really focus on something, but have some, it's about priority, right? Like IA of your portfolio, right? Show yourself, I'm a UX designer and these are my strong, and then yes, I also can do these things, right? But if you present it all equally, that can really start to muddy the message, but that's tough out there. And I get that.
Yeah. I saw a really great post this morning, actually. The person was saying, this is my strength. This is what I do. This is what I'm great, amazing at. And this is something I can do. And just know that there is going to be, you can expect a lot of great quality out of this. You can expect me to just be able to accomplish it on this, like, I can do this thing and that's it. So don't expect like really great stuff. And honestly, I think that's okay. In chat, I threw in the resource from We Can Fix It in UI. Amazing resource for folks if you want to check it out. It's a website. And the resource I threw in was the spectrum of everything that encompasses UXD, from research all the way to implementation. And when you look at all of that and you take a step back, you're like, oh my God, like one person doing all of this is crazy. This is actually a job of like 4 or 5 people. And the roles that we're seeing out right now is, again, in my experience, when I read through them, they want someone to do that entire spectrum. So it's, you have to be really, really like conscious and careful. And folks that aren't UX designers that are watching, be kind to us, I guess, and be realistic. Expecting that much from one single person actually does a disservice for your team. It really, really does.
And it super quick +1 to that. Like I've seen showing that you have sensibilities in those areas and an ability and willingness to learn. Usually that's enough at any studio worth its salt, showing like, yeah, I've done some stuff in Engine. I can learn that, I can adapt. That's enough. And if it's not, that's sometimes a good criteria to filter those companies out. That's tough in a marketplace where a lot of us don't have jobs. It's sometimes a luxury. But if someone wants you to be 5 people, it may not be worth jumping into that arena. So also think about empowering yourself to maybe make a different decision, because that job post says something about that organization and the way they operate.
Go ahead,
Also,
Aline.
on top of that, it's kind of funny, but it's not like once or like twice. That happened to me many times. But you go to the interview, they ask a bunch of things, and they don't actually need those things they are asking for. So they need someone to solve a different problem. So it's kind of interesting to see this as well. Maybe you should just go for the interview and figure out what they actually need, or make asking questions for the recruiter, right? So you can actually understand how much they need, what they are asking for.
Yeah, it really is like detective work. to see if all these things align with actual expectations. Totally agree.
I want to move on to our next topic, which we're already kind of covering right now a little bit. But as we're job searching, especially those that are just entering the market, folks from boot camps, and also those who have graduated, as well as those that are, again, because of the layoffs or ending their contracts, they don't know what to do next. What are ways that we can navigate what's going on right now? And I'll open it up to the floor.
Nobody wants to start or start. I don't know. Like we can talk. This topic is huge, right? We can talk about everything. But one of the things is like find friends and make friends. Put yourself out there. Be visible for people as much as you can. Probably you have more friends and people that could refer you than you actually know they could. So make your portfolio, send to all your friends. Someone's gonna know somebody that's recruiting at some point that can help you to kick out the door, right? I think that's the first two.
Yeah, plus one. And I think one of the things that really limits us sometimes, we limit our own selves and like, oh, I shouldn't be asking people for help. That's like a bad thing to, no, it's okay to ask people for help. I am giving you permission to ask people for help, your friends for help. Because otherwise, how will people know that what to do to help you? And if they say no, that's fine. No worries about it. No pressure, no, but at least you took that step.
Yeah, big plus 1,000 to that. I mean, get in Amir's database, right? Like as a mentee, as a mentor, whatever, like I have people reach out to me all the time on that thing. Young UXers, industry transfer UXers. And there's a lot of other, experienced people that will take the time to talk to you. If you just ask in a courteous, respectful way, like if they don't have time, they'll say they don't have time. But especially a list like that, they've signed up, they said they've had time. Big plus one to what Aline said, like being you kind of have to think about yourself as like a product or as a company, right? Like some of that's being top of mind, right? So it's being in people's awareness, and then an opportunity comes across and they go, oh yeah, I just talked to Aline, or I just talked to Neil, or just saw this thing that this person posted. And for me, as like someone who's been in the industry for a good while, the form that has taken recently, which has lots of emotional benefits too, is like I just started putting recurring dev calls with like friends of mine or people I used to work with, other UXers, former client people maybe that I had good relationships with, and we just catch up every month or every quarter. It's really fun personally, but also then they're from a selfish work perspective, they're thinking about me. They remember me, like, and so opportunities come along. And so people, like, we talk about networking and it always feels gross and like sleazy, and it's just like like Aline said it best, like make friends. Like we're all people that like the same shit.
Genuine connections.
Just get on the internet and nerd out with people and talk about the shit you like. And like that will bring good fruit for you for sure.
Yeah, plus one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I agree with that. Just make friends. I think also just keeping up those conversations just keeps you fresh too. Because I know a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us are pretty introverted. We're at home sometimes, just like in our little holes doing our work on our computer, especially if we're working on resumes and portfolios. But
Sonia, I have how did we meet?
We met was that on Clubhouse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we met on Clubhouse on the cocktail hour thing. And we've been connected ever since. So that was like what, 2-3 years ago?
I think that was like 3 years ago now.
And
yeah.
And the conversations, I mean, we talked about UX a lot in the Clubhouse, but really it was just more geeking out about things.
Yeah, it was just a bunch of lonely like gamers and nerds at home, like on lockdown during the pandemic. Like I need like some form of interaction. So Clubhouse was kind of hot at the time. And yeah, I remember lurking for a long time and then eventually spoke. And I mean, honestly, like that led to so many things. Our friendship, I met mentors on there, and I could talk a whole while about how that led me to where I am now. But yeah.
For those asking,
Pretty
yes,
serendipitous.
Clubhouse is still a thing. Definitely not as active as it used to be, and they've changed their format a little bit. But I definitely recommend giving it a try, and joining the cocktail hour is always pretty fun. But yeah, go ahead, Neil.
Super quick plus one to that. Something I forgot about, but it's been pretty pivotal for me and also people that I've been able to help. Look for local UX communities, right? Like outside of games, like Denver has a UX Slack group, and like there's all these in-person meetups that have like 100 freaking people there that are all UX designers. Some will be struggling in their career at the same place you are. Some will be people that run companies or have done UX for 20 years. And I've actually had an opportunity to give people opportunities to work with them through that, to get work through that. Like, look, yeah, even just like physical, like where you live /UX, like a lot of times there's a group, or local tech groups, right? So we have a ton of local Denver tech groups. They're not even UX specific, but you find a bunch of UX and dev people in there that need work. And like, that's one that was pretty non-obvious to me, and recently has been pretty cool to be. And it's also, again, a bunch of cool, fun nerds to hang out with and be a part of. So
we're all geeks. We all have something in common. Let me see. Is there anything else any of you want to bring up for navigating? Because otherwise I'll move on to the next topic, which is really great.
An important thing is also keeping learning, right? So especially if you're looking for a job and the roles are kind of weird, so you probably wonder yourself, should I be actually studying to learn or whatever? So probably doesn't hurt to try, right? Try and share what you're learning, and then maybe that opens opportunities as well. And maybe you discover something new that you actually like.
Right? Huge plus one to that, especially since we're seeing so many jobs that are saying Unreal experience, implementation, blueprint, like knowing all of that. I mean, it doesn't hurt to at least get familiar with what the latest technology is doing. And just, I mean, even if it's just sharing on LinkedIn as a post or on your social media, I know a ton of folks that like, they just share on Instagram, like little snippets of videos. And it's like, hey, I'm like, or TikTok as well. I see a lot of game developers sharing on TikTok lately. It's just like a little update of like something that I'm tinkering with, and that's it. At least folks see that you're constantly learning and that you're teachable. I'm going to move on to the next topic, which in line with what we literally just talked about with, you know, learning new things. What are the new expectations we're seeing, and what skills do you think folks should be learning? Given this current climate for 2022, 2023, 2024.
Well, the skill set's quite huge, but I think like the first thing everybody needs to learn is communication, right? How you communicate better, how you present better, how you talk about yourself, how you present your work, everything related to that. I think is like the first thing to learn, because even if you don't know something, but you're great, people like you, the chances are that you're gonna get the job, right? Get the job.
Yeah, learning how to sell yourself.
I would say, complementary to that, like on top of like verbal communication skills, is your written and documentation skills. Because there is so much of that involved with the job, and I don't care if you're like in game dev or just in regular tech, like there's so much documentation, artifacts, and then that also helps you be able to like communicate in your portfolio or case studies, you know, after the fact as well. So that's what's going to help you and your team kind of like carry on that knowledge as you're working on projects.
Yeah, plus one to that, a lot of the roles that I've been in lately, I've been having to UX our design process as a whole, not just the UX design process, but like game design and PMs and like how we communicate with engineering. I've had to go into documentation and folders and JIRAs and stuff like that and like really streamline everything so that everyone can find everything that they need. That is not something you expect to do as a UX designer, but it's needed because it's part of efficiency and communication, which in turn helps you do your job. What else?
Well, double down in that, like I think like a PME tasks or like you in UX in general, being organized is a very good thing to be, right? You need to learn how to organize yourself, organize your screens, teach people, etc., etc. But I used to joke like actually agile saved my marriage, you know, because the more you learn about like how make your life better and easier, it can help you in so many different roles, not just find a new job, but I don't know, make your actually work better, right? Make your whole life better. So it's like if I would invest in a skill that I didn't have, I would start there. You know, it's kind of funny, but yeah.
Yeah, I think this is kind of similar to what everyone else is saying, a different flavor of it, like learning, and I don't know what the skill is. I mean, you could call it strategy, but like learning to zoom out and see how your work fits in the org and fits in the team, how it currently fits, maybe how it should fit, maybe where some of that fit is broken, and being able to like look at not just your work. Okay, I'm asked to do these wireframes, but like use your UX skills, zoom out to the whole thing. And even if you maybe don't necessarily have the skills or kind of the license internally to necessarily start changing all these processes, sometimes it's just as humble as making little suggestions about how to optimize, how we could better use UX, because that might be the thing that saves your job at the end of the day, right? Like places that cause friction or people where people question the ROI of something in a business, even if it's strong, but they don't understand it, or it's kind of problematic the way it's orchestrated. The more you can kind of see where all the wires of your work connect to other people's work, and just think critically about that and make suggestions on your team, the more you can really expand your value and kind of move more into the strategic type conversations, right? Which will only increase the understanding and value of UX at whatever company you're at.
And your impact on the team as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to take a quick step back into the expectations that we're starting to see. So we talked about skills and things that you should start looking at. But when we're looking at like these job recs, what is it that we're actually seeing on that expectation side? We talked about Unreal and the fact that like we're seeing more jobs that are asking for Unreal experience and Blueprint. What else?
It seems like, I mean, this has always sucked in the industry, but it seems like it's sucking even more again recently, as like entry-level roles seem to have like all but disappeared, right? Like you have, entry-level role must have 2 to 3 years of experience shipping games. Like,
Yeah,
it's just this, that's always been bad in the industry, but I think it's taken a backwards trend again.
yeah. I'm also seeing, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say we are seeing like PM tasks, also mentoring peers, also I don't know, workshopping, designing thinking of all kinds, right?
Yeah,
Video
we
design
kind
and
of
UX design together. Sorry.
no, you're good. We're seeing this. We're always educating. I feel like, especially in the game industry, like what we do, we're always educating our teams and our companies. But it feels like doubly so lately.
Yeah.
Sonia, were you going to say something?
No, something I've seen, we were talking about this before, is design systems. So I've seen that a lot in like, web dev and SaaS, but that seems to be coming up now in the game space as well.
Which I'm actually really happy about. It feels like a step in the right direction.
Yeah, but that is like, I mean, some companies, they have someone whose sole role is to manage and advocate for their design system. So I'm curious to see how that goes.
If it sticks and stays, yeah. And people keep using them, because that's the thing that happens with design systems. You put all this work into the system, into this library, and then let's say you end up leaving the company or you switch to another project, and then no one else uses it ever again. And it becomes like this legacy artifact thing. It's like, oh my God, who made this? Where did this come from? But yeah.
Yep. Adoption is like super important, but also collaborating with like cross-functional teams like your engineers and developers, so they get involved and then they can also become advocates. So, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Another thing that we're seeing a lot is prototyping. I think it's good to emphasize that, because prototyping becomes kind of a huge thing, especially to save money in a way, right?
Yeah, and whenever I show Figma to like clients or my teams or anything like that, are like, oh my God, this is amazing. And like, yeah, you can collaborate in this. And can you prototype? Like, do we have to do it in Unity or something? No, we can do it all in Figma. And it just like blows their minds. And it's like, yeah, Figma's powerful, yo. I'm going to move on to our next topic, which is actually, as we're talking about skill sets. Again, we have folks that maybe they're into their 6th month, 8th month, 12th month looking for a job, and they haven't been able to nail anything down. How can they take the skills that they have as UX designers and apply it to maybe looking at other roles in the meantime? Or if they do want to do like a career transition, like what sort of lateral moves can they make based on the skills that they currently have as UX?
Well, we could, again, being a producer or a product manager type of person, you could start to develop. So you could do web instead of games if you're working games, right? You could do, I don't know, learn Webflow. It's actually not coding, so it could be okay. And like you do a lateral move for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll use myself as an example for that question. I mean, I'm not working directly on game dev. Still super stoked about where I'm at and that I get to work in the games industry. And knowing that my role helps support the big picture. But yeah, like I'm working on what I guess you consider more like enterprise UI UX design, some web design, and I'm I'm stoked that like at least my foot is in the door. Like I'm in here in the space. So that's one example.
Yeah, I think one of the things when we were doing our pre-chat, the group of us, Coraly had this resource of like all the things we get asked to do, right? We all have different sensibilities, right? Like I'm more tried and true a UXer from a game design perspective, things like that. I'm actually a pretty shit UI person, don't tell anybody. My UI sensibilities are pretty piss poor, right? So thinking about a UXer as what are those areas of spec. We internalize a lot of this, but kind of codifying, like we love codifying shit, right? Codifying, what are the branches of your skill set and where are you strongest, right? Because Aline and I we're a bunch of us were talking about like as a UXer, you have, I would argue, one of the most flexible skill sets in the world, right? We think about people, right? And when then we design crap, right? And so, I mean, this connects to marketing, it connects to social media, it connects to how you message to people. We deal in emotions and motivations and compelling people and giving them experiences, right? So if you're maybe more visually apt, like, graphic design, things like that, if you're more maybe on the copy side or, promo-y kind of side, like, is there space for you in marketing within the company or at a different company or social media? If you're more technical, coding, implementation, small time engineering, again, designing processes, producer, all that stuff. So I think some of the ways you can find that and not feel so overwhelmed is by identifying what within UX are you best at and do you most enjoy, and what does that funnel into? Because there are a lot of options. Because as UXer, you got a pretty versatile skill set.
Also, it's important
And
to say,
go ahead.
sorry, yeah, that has no shame about trying something completely different or out of UX if you need to pay bills, right? I think that's very important to say. Even for HR, it's still like kind of a bias concern people don't really like, but I think like, well, we need to pay bills, it's okay, right? Like, let's do whatever we need to survive. There's no shame in that.
Yeah, exactly.
Big plus one to that for sure.
One other role I wanted to add to this, because I see it happen so often, a lot of UX designers either become product designers or PMs. Like they shift over into those roles as well. a lot of the PMs I've worked with, they don't necessarily have business degrees. Some of them do, and it's totally fine. But really, again, it comes back to communication. It comes back to that holistic understanding of the product and who you're making it for and advocating, you know, for those users. There's like PMs can be your greatest ally, and you can easily become a PM as well. A PM product manager, just in case, for those that don't know what I'm talking about. And then, all right, so we talked about the roles themselves and what you can transition to or where you can lend your skills at. What about industries? I know I come from, like, I was just at Niantic, so AR, VR, XR is definitely one. What are some others?
I think we could talk. Let's go ahead, Sonia. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Just quickly, I mean, before I was at Activision, I was working for a startup called Really, and they were sports and esports focused. So I was helping design their tooling on that team, and you know, that kind of gave me some of that, a little bit of the insight to like the gaming world, and I at least got to like put something, you know, esports related on my resume, which was a little bit of a boost.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, most of my clients are actually, some are games, but some are not games. And they're also like a Unity or like a prototype is something for, I don't know, the future of broadcast, the future of movies. I don't know, can we make movies interactive? I don't know, like something like that. Also learning a lot. We even had a talk before that about it. I think like most of the learnings need a lot of UI UX skills in games, you know? So that would be a huge thing to do.
Yeah, and I think there's a kind of piggyback off that, right? Industries that may seem non-obvious, right? Like I know people that are longtime game UXers that have gotten work doing like interactive museum exhibits and like even some small part-time game design stuff, right? If you're a UXer,
And those are really fun.
Yeah, and they can be really cool, right? Educational, like make some impact potentially. It's a really unique space. So it's like you could slap interactive on almost anything, and those people need your skill sets, right? And if it's some type of game, you kind of get a bonus points because these tend to be people that don't have a lot of games expertise, but are trying to bring games into their world. So even if you have a little bit of games expertise, and have some game design sensibilities, you can really get a leg up in kind of applications and opportunities there as being a game industry person. So looking for, interactive, gamified stuff in almost any other world is another kind of good avenue as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think Sonia said this one originally, but I'm super passionate about it. Presentations and slide decks, like making slide decks is a skill and it is a UX thing for sure. So whether that's internally helping people make decks or even like working with companies to make pitch decks, like again, we are good at looking at stuff and then understanding, having good hypotheses of how people are going to perceive and experience it, right? So any type of user-facing product, that was something that Sonia mentioned that I really get excited about because I suck at slide deck design, but it's really important.
If one thing I suggest for folks listening, if you're looking to transition a little bit more into the strategy side of things and really understanding how to communicate to your business stakeholders, helping with presentations, either helping your producer or your team's lead, whoever it is, with green light process or with any sort of presentation that's going to be shown to like C-suite level folks, is going to help you gain that skill set and gain that knowledge and that language, specifically that language. So that when it comes to you to like one day present your designs to someone that's a little bit higher on your team, then you can speak in a way that helps you like really nail down the impact of the design and why what you're proposing is so important or you believe is going to work in a way that they understand, rather than like the design side of it. Yeah, it's like easy little way to help.
Yeah, one other piggyback off that quickly is like, and this is kind of bouncing back briefly to, we were talking about like, how do you lend your skill set to other roles in UX in theory within game development? Another lens to think about it, like well, I don't know, can I be a producer? Like that can be kind of intimidating. You think about a role switch. One of the ways I think about it is like zoom out, look at the whole game dev timeline, and how can you lend your skills to different periods on that timeline? Like, is UX not super involved, or are you not super involved early or late? And just kind of look, that's another way to look at it, to say, where can I show value and build value to either keep my job, to help establish more credibility for UX, to get a job. So looking at that dev timeline and seeing gaps where we're not really involved here can help you kind of, again, find some more opportunities.
All right. And I want to move into our last topic before we start Q&A. What are other avenues you can explore that isn't full-time work, or when you can't find full-time work, or you've had 20 interviews and nothing's panning out? You all said, like, we still need to pay the bills. So what are other things we can do? And I'm really interested in Neil and Aline giving perspective on that as well.
I think the first answer is always do freelancing, you know, especially if you're a junior UX designer and you're starting out, just find someone like your ENCO that needs a website or anything, just start doing things, right? I know like that's huge, like, or a challenge because, oh, they pay less, whatever, but at least it is in the field you want. So that will teach you the skills, and then more you learn, you grow there. So I think like a freelancing or doing contract roles or temporary jobs really is the first thing I think about it.
Yeah, and kind of like I mentioned before, like it's like, oh, starting a company doesn't have to be this big thing. Sometimes you can, spin into little solo projects. Sometimes, again, the networking, maybe a developer, right? You meet a developer in a local tech group that gets a development project but needs UX help, right? So all those things. What piggyback off what Aline said, like one of the things I learned, it was so important at UXIF, but it's just anytime you're a freelancer, I think we're so used to like getting the work in the studio and not necessarily having to sell ourselves. And one of the most important things I think about selling yourself is having a concept of what your offerings are. If you're just out there and you're like, I'm a UXer, I can do all your UX things, like we know what that means. And a lot of people have a sense of what that means, but like people think in stories and they think in narratives and they think in problems and pain. And so like, it's really important, I think, even as a solo person, to have 3 to 4 core offerings. And I tell that, like, I know multiple people that are starting their own consultancies, and this is what I tell all of them, like, what are your 3 core offerings? And they don't have to be pristinely defined of like, this is a package with 10 wireframes. It's just, I think about it in terms of like problems and points in the development. So for example, like our things at UXIF were always like, hey, you've got a game and it's just not working. Maybe it's in live ops and the KPIs are bad, or your friends and family test, people aren't getting it, and you got to help. And so that's like an audit and an analysis and a direction feedback package, right? And then it's like you're starting from the game ground up and you need expertise in UX or mobile UX or cross-platform UX. And so that's more of a comprehensive UX package, or you need help setting that vision and communicating it to your team and really understanding how you develop the experience. That's more of a strategy thing, right? So, but all of those speak to 3 different developers at 3 different points that they can understand and look at your website and go, that's me. That's the problem we're having right now. And this person says they can fix it. They got some splash of company logos. They've had some experience fixing it before. It's about showing people their problems in a mirror and then saying, I've solved these problems before, right? And not being, you don't have to be overly specific, but it can't just be this vague, I do UX. Because it just, people don't, I mean, Aline and I especially were joking about this, like you almost always ride in on one horse and the plan is you're going to do A, and then by 3 weeks into the deal, you're doing like G, F, and Y. And so that's another thing not to get too hung up on, like get the deal signed and don't worry about all the details being perfect. Get your foot in the door and then you'll blow their socks off because UX is so unbelievably valuable, as we all know. And then you can figure out the rest, is some of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's so true. Actually, that's like I have uncountable times I sign up like to do, I don't know, I'm gonna do a logo, I'm gonna do like just the home screen of this game, I don't know. And then that becomes a huge like process or a contract for over years, so years working in the same company. So they don't really know what you are able to do or to help, and all of them need you, kind of need your skill set. So it has lots of opportunities there.
And one thing I suggest for those that are kind of like freelancing or consulting on their own, in my experience, I worked with oh my God, career coach. There we go. I was looking for the word. I worked with a career coach to really like what Neil was talking about. Like, what are the core things, like 3 or 4 core things, the value that I can bring to a client or a business based on, you know, the experience that I have. Like, I've worked in games, yes, mostly in casual mobile, but I've also worked in the educational space and AR and VR. So I have like this really interesting mishmash of all these different skill sets. But at the end of the day, one of like my core values or core value props, I guess, is that I'm very player-centered. Yes, service design I can do, but really at the end of the day, the way that I think and approach problems is through a player-centered lens. And that's how I communicate myself to others. So a career coach can help you put that into words, into actual like definitions of those words.
And I think the thing that's encouraging for me that I realized in doing UX/IF for 5 years, like it's so overwhelming. Like, how will we tell everyone and capture all the possible audience of clients that we can serve their needs? And you work with so many studios, you realize that pretty much all game dev projects suffer from like the same 3 to 4 systemic issues that then cause everything else that you can, like all games. Like we've all seen it all go off the rails in my whole career. Like they all go off the rails for like the same of a few different flavors. And so when you start to realize that, it starts to feel less like, oh my God, I got to say all these things I can do and catch all these problems, because a lot of them are the same, honestly. And that's exciting because it's empowering, because most game devs, if you talk to them like a game dev, which is another kind of point of advice I would give, like a lot of times they're like, oh, I need to be buttoned up. Like, we're game devs, we wear cargo shorts and Star Wars shirts, like and people like doing business with people they can kind of relate to and have that relationship. Like if you just speak human, they'll be like, yeah, I've been there. We've all been there. And that builds relationships, and that's what business is.
Yep. What are some of the pros of being a consultant, being a contractor, being your kind of like your own boss? Because I know,
yeah, new experience in mine like maybe are quite different, because he had like a big company, right? So he can speak more relate to that like in another perspective. But for me, it's like I feel like I have more freedom, not just like more time for me, but also more freedom to kind of choose what I'm gonna do, when I'm gonna do, and even so, sometimes work as advisor almost for free, right? Like for things that I believe in. So I think it has lots of like freedom that I couldn't achieve if I wasn't like a contractor or like a consultant full time, right? I think that's the biggest advantage to me. But also like you also learn more, because if you're like working in the same team for like, I don't know, 3-5 years in the same game, and games take very long to be made, folks. So sometimes you stay there and you're doing exactly the same screen over and over again. And then you don't really get like different audience, different projects, different challenge, different, I don't know, target audience in general. So being a consultant put me like it give me the opportunity to work in very different projects and products. So I think like I learn more. So that's the biggest, the second biggest, right?
Yeah, big plus one to that. I spent 3 years in a studio working on one game and probably worked on 5 games in a year. And like Aline said, you can work with some really cool people and make some financial trade-offs if it's something you believe in. You know, and obviously being your own boss, working anywhere in the, you know, right now, I mean, I could work anywhere in the world. And that comes with risks, right? It's not all glory, and it's trade-offs. There, you know, there's uncertainty to it. Which kind of reminds me of something that you asked, Coraly, is like, it really is kind of a personal decision. Like we were talking about, like, when do you build the business, right? Like, when do you know, like, when do you try to build a bigger thing? And like, some of the question more before, like, strategically you think about that is, do you want to, right? It's a very different world being an army of one versus building a consultancy of 15 to 20 people. You know, that's very different. In one world, you're much more your own boss. In the other world, you have a lot of people that rely on you at the end of the day. And building a company versus being a lone wolf. So really thinking about your goals, right? Is really important. And I think one thing kind of inspired by something Aline said is, like, I always tell people to have a client rubric, right? And some of that is the freedom to, like, not work with certain clients. Again, it's a bit of a luxury when maybe the money's not there and you got to do some stuff you got to do, but it is nice and it is important to kind of have a rubric and you kind of refine that over time for what deals and relationships and types of companies were successful to work with, and getting to a place where you build some success where you can make those choices is really nice. And the other thing is, I think, yeah, Aline originally brought this up, is like, your eggs are in more baskets, right? We're all used to kind of working in a studio on one game. And if that game goes to shit,
then what do we do?
A bunch of us are probably getting laid off. And this is a more deal where, like, you can be working on 1 to 3 to 4 projects at a time, or 2 projects here and 5 projects there. And like, your role is smaller, but you can distribute your risk across a lot more companies and projects.
Yeah, I think the term we were talking about with this one specifically was, like, it's more recession proof because you have so many eggs in so many baskets, and it's not what you've built up isn't going to topple down completely just because this one project didn't work out. All right. Is there anything else? Because otherwise, I would love to open it for Q&A for a few minutes.
Let's do it.
Good.
All right. First question that I'm noticing, let me see. I've been doing a bit of consulting over the past few months, mostly in a research capacity. I have a lot of design experience, but I'm worried real positions won't consider a primarily research role as real experience. It's a jack of all trades position, but which experience would be most important to a more permanent position?
Maybe you could answer that, Coraly, to be honest.
Me?
Yes.
So in games, again, this is my experience. I'm not saying everyone has been through this. Most of the teams that I've been on, especially as sole UX, they want to see the visuals and they want to see the flows. Like they want to know what's on the screen, what do I need to tap to get to the next screen, and then make it pretty. If you can do that, everything else you can learn on the job, really. Even the research stuff, like when I first started, I had no research experience. I started with surveys and I read a bunch of books and a bunch of articles and reached out to my mentors because it's the first time I'm ever doing research. I don't have a background in like specifically like being a user researcher, but I learned it on the job. But at the end of the day, what your team is really looking for is those deliverables. What is the flow? What are the wireframes? Maybe a prototype. It helps. It helps communicate things. And really, a lot of times at the end of the day, the UI, the visuals, the high fidelity polish, they really want to see those things. I'm hoping that answered part of that question. If anyone else has another thing they want to add.
No, I think
it may
plus
have-
one. Yeah, I think it sounds like kind of visualizing information architecture, really.
And when we are talking about visualizing, not necessarily like a pretty image on the screen. Sometimes a prototype wireframe is also visualizing things, right? Just a reminder.
Yep.
Diagrams.
Literally, a whiteboard is visualizing sometimes. And maybe that's all you need, a whiteboard to get people started. But yeah, other times it's definitely more the screen by screen. There's 2 questions here that are kind of asking the same thing. Do you think there's an overlap between UX design and producer roles? And And the other one is, how much are product designers with UX experience being used in games right now? Oh, they're two different questions, sorry. So
I
for
could
the
answer the
first one,
PM. Yeah,
yeah, go
I
for it.
could actually want to answer the second one, so I can wait.
Okay.
Like,
With the producer roles, like we talked about it earlier, but it's about organizing, and specifically organizing people. And we are kind of experts at both. But when I was doing a lot of producer roles, I lived in spreadsheets. And I would highlight our priorities, who was in charge of what, links to all the different Figmas and files and everything. And I would also roadmap plan for our design team specifically. We would, generally speaking, other teams would have a producer to do all that. That was me. Including any sort of like communication we needed to do with our front-end engineers. But because you're so, ideally, as a UX designer, you're very good at communication, you're very good at knowing what makes for an efficient process. That's what helps us be like really great producers. It's not something for everybody, but it helps.
I would just quickly say there's an overwhelming amount of overlap, violent agreement, and I would say it's even more important if you're a consultant, because you're going to get less/no production. As a consultant, you're going to tend to get not a lot of production support, and the more you can help organize your client, which we've done with some of the biggest, best studios in the world that you would think are well-oiled machines, like providing that organizational force to help people understand how UX work fits in, how to scope it, how it all, again, they're hiring you because they probably don't have a lot of internal UX expertise. So the more you can help plan and structure that work, you're going to get a lot of repeat business in that form as a consultant, because people are going to really appreciate the value.
And then Aline, do you want to tackle the second question?
yeah, like I was a product designer before, right? I started my career in digital design as a product designer. So I did a bunch of spreadsheets, metrics, and I don't know, everything, support tickets, all you can imagine, because that's what product designers do. We figure out what the problem of the product are, right? So I would say like when I built like the team at Wildlife, we hired most of our designers never, they like games, but they never open a game to like, or think about working a game as a designer UX, like UX designer for a game itself. And they become great UX designers in games, right? Like if you're
really
a great designer, yeah. If you're a great designer, you're just a great designer. The skill set is basically the same. It doesn't really have changed. Like of course, like some gaming companies prefer, especially for senior roles, right? They prefer to hire senior people with like lots of experience in AAA. That's very common in the roles we see out there. But I wouldn't say it's required. The vocabulary is pretty much the same. You're gonna learn a few tips, but if you play games a lot, you are covered. You know, you could like just apply and go out and see what happens.
We have about a minute left. I think we should wrap it up that way the next folks can get started. But I want to thank everybody again for coming and seeing us and listening to us, but also our panelists that took time in their day to actually come in, and especially Neil, you just came back from vacation too. But just taking the time to talk about this. I think it's really, really important, especially given what's been happening this year, and for folks to prepare over the holidays, leading into next year, what we could expect. If you all can and are comfortable doing so, go ahead and post your LinkedIns into chat. That way folks can connect with you and follow up with any questions. Same thing here, I'll share mine, but I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of their day and rest of their week, and take care and ping us with questions.
Yes,
Thank you
please.
so much, everybody.
Thanks so much, y'all. Appreciate you.
Thanks all.
And thank you, Celia.
Thank you for this wonderful panel.